The Gaz Williams Show. I have got something a little bit different for you tonight. Sorry, a little bit late starting, but it'll all make sense soon. So I'm just going to waffle a little bit just whilst we get our live audience together, and then we're going to get into the main kind of thrust of this evening, which, as I say, I will reveal all shortly. Firstly, I would just like to welcome you to the show. If you're new here, then really, really nice for you to drop in and to check out the show. And to all the regulars, thank you ever so much for your repeated kind of, I wouldn't call it custom, but whatever it is, it's most welcome. Anyway, right. Yes. We are getting ready. Show is starting. Yeah, apologies for a slightly late start. Again, trying something a little bit different tonight. Well, as I say, we will see shortly what I'm talking about, because this is going to be a little bit of a pilot, if you will, to something. So you can see I'm really just sort of treading water a moment. Yeah, nice. I just wanted to get our nice audience. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Anyway, so let's start talking about the show. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the Synth panel. Now, the Synth panel is a discussion show that is all about synthesizers. And joining me tonight will be various guests who are part of the Synth panel. So we'll be able to meet them and get to know a little bit about them, because I think most of them will be new to certainly to my regular audience, and a very interesting bunch of people they are indeed. So, well, I think we should jump in. Why not? Let's get ready to rumble, so to speak. And my first guest is coming all the way from down under, and he is somebody who is a definite specialist, I would say. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Mr. General MIDI?
Hey, Gaz, thanks very much for having me on the show. It's an absolute honor. I've been watching you for years on the internet, and ever since we met back in Japan, whilst you were on tour with Carl Hyde, I've been busting a gut to get on your show. So thank you very much. General MIDI, it's all about the MIDI, right?
Right. So General MIDI, tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, I mean, when our first conversation was, you were saying that the pinnacle in music technology was the creation of the General MIDI standard. You think it's all been downhill since then?
Absolutely. I mean, can you mention, any piece of music in the last 10 years that has absolutely, loved General MIDI? I mean, you go back in the 90s, the noughties, and it was everywhere. I mean, when was the last time you heard the Chiff lead?
The Chiff lead? Oh, how about the shamisen?
Oh, well, there's a special thing. I mean, the 90s, world music, I mean, there wasn't a single track that Peter Gabriel didn't put out without that sound in it. So, I mean, it was kind of like it was almost a signature sound.
So you think then that General MIDI, that things beyond General MIDI then has been kind of unnecessary? You seem to think that it's enough, that General MIDI. Tell me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 128 of anything's fine, right? Can you have 128 eggs for breakfast? I usually have 2. I can push it to 3, but I know that's going to have consequences.
So 100.
So I stick to 128, mate. I mean, you look at the control numbers. I mean, there's blanks in there. You can fill it in with your imagination.
Right, but I mean, surely those sounds are a bit. We've advanced more beyond those kind of the General MIDI sound set. Surely.
What, 105 sitar? What's more advanced than that? I mean, that is a sound that evokes a deep feeling. A deep sense of zen, if you will. You put that in a track and you know exactly where you're going. You might want to put the sweep pad, number 96, to go with it. But, that's the heart of ambience, mate.
So, what, I mean, what would you say then is the kind of the best General MIDI module then of all time?
SC880.
Yeah?
Without a doubt. Roland and general MIDI are like synonymous with, like, I don't know, salt and vinegar, mate. It's like fish and chips. It's like pie and mash.
Right.
It's I mean, Yamaha XG was great, but it just, for my money, Roland.
Right. So with the CC numbers, then I seem to remember you kind of you know your CC numbers. So
oh well, I'm a.
So I mean, for me, I would think that working with general MIDI would only kind of get you to like demo level. Surely, like the orchestral samples or something from a general MIDI that's got no use. Surely.
Hans Zimmer, mate. SC880 Gladiator, the movie, not an orchestra. General MIDI.
Oh, really?
Little known fact, but a lot of reverb. And some good production. The mastering was amazing, on that particular soundtrack. But yeah, okay. Hans is a big fan. I mean, he'll show you his Moog modular, and he'll be like, "Yes, I make this." But honestly, mate, underneath the desk, sound canvas.
Okay, interesting. Wow, amazing revelation. So anyway, I'm going to cut away from general MIDI for a moment now because we've got our other guests of the synth panel that I'd like you to meet. So so general MIDI, clearly into his general MIDI. Now, we our next guest hails from, I think they might even have snow, the chilly state of Montana, and I just realized that I'm doing something weird here. So I'm going to cut in now and hope that our next guest, Mr. Clem Glenson.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, guys. In Montana we've had snow. It's 1 degree outside at the moment, and I'm having to keep my synthesizers warm with blankets at the moment.
So, Clem, you go back with music a very long way and especially to synthesizers, to a time from before synthesizers. Yeah. So surely,
I was a technician out of college. I accidentally fell into the world of synthesizers, and one day I ended up at the Purple Prince's Paisley place, and I ended up fixing all of his Oberheim stuff, and this was how I got the name of the Oberheim guy.
Right.
Because I was specialists in Oberheim.
But I mean, this follows like many, many years of some quite interesting investigations into audio. I remember you telling me about how you were equating various waveforms with different fruit flavors. And I remember you saying that the sawtooth has the flavor of lemon, that the resonances are...
It depends on the synthesizer, because I think a Moog's saw is definitely lemon, but I think if you go to ARP, I think you're looking at grapefruit.
Wow.
And I think this is the difference that you get with your citrus fruits. The flavors and the sounds of the oscillators, the waveforms are different.
So, I mean, how can you then equate, though, like taste, sensation and sound? How did you make these connections?
I am not at liberty to divulge that information on a public broadcast channel. Well, it was the 60s.
But so a square wave then, what is the flavor of square waves?
It's a banana.
Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought that would have been a little bit more curvier of a waveform, but
no, square's a banana.
And
sine, apple.
Oh. See, now Apple being a bit sharper, I'd have thought it would have had more harmonics in there.
This is mine. I invented this system.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I mean, sample and hold is like a fruit salad.
Can you tell me about the time then, though, when you were trying to attune yourself to various subsonic frequencies? You started to live in a subwoofer. Is that right?
It kind of happened accidentally. I was fixing a sound system back in '78 in it was at Studio 53, 54. Anyway, I wasn't really into disco, was more like listening to, the bigger stuff, Tangerine Dream. I mean, those Germans really knew a thing about synthesizers. But I was fixing it, and I think I fell over, and I ended up in a bass bin for about, I don't know, 3 days.
So, and the club was at full capacity for those days.
It didn't stop.
So tell me then,
Ever.
which
It's probably still going on now.
But this is quite interesting. You said that that the subwaves could influence your dreams, and if the music was predominantly in the key of G, then you would dream about dogs.
Yeah. You shift that up a fifth, and you got cats.
Wow.
I mean, and then all the variety of different pet animals. And bear in mind that the color and flavor of these was influenced by the sound of the individual synth sounds. I mean, it was revolutionary.
Yes. So you weren't known as the Oberheim guy back in these days, but you were.
No.
No.
I was just Clem.
So,
and that was my name.
And still is your name.
Some people don't know that. Some people just know me as the Oberheim guy. They don't know my name.
And so, how did you feel when the blue Oberheim, was it the OB12 that was made by Viscount, came out bearing the Oberheim name? How did that feel?
It felt like something had died in the world. And the Matrix. I mean, what was that about?
So I'm going to cut now.
No, I still to this day don't know.
Right, we got to move away from Clem for a moment because we've got the other guests to introduce, and I know that Clem is known for maybe taking his time to get there. So our next guest is hailing from the north of England and has got a reputation of being the absolute #1 guy for getting your synths and your music tech equipment repaired. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Uncle Onions.
Gosh. I'm not Mr. I'm Uncle Onions.
Uncle Onions.
Yeah, I've been repairing things for many a year. I've had everybody's synthesizers. I've even had Hammond organs to tweak the tone wheels and that. There's a lot of soldering involved in those things. And there's many a time I've been on stage at the various sort of like places up north, in the middle of a set.
Yeah,
fixing the Hammond organ for the bloody charlatans.
The charlatans. Wow.
Happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the big names, me.
So you're a big advocate of always having tin foil with you. Why is that?
Oh, because of screening, isn't it? I mean, I've got tin foil in the middle of my hat here. You can't see it, but you never know. You might need a bit of tin foil.
Right, okay. So when back in the 70s then, you really like 70s equipment for working on, not so much the 80s equipment. Why is that then?
Well, I don't like any gear really. I hate it all. It's all rubbish, isn't it? It's all made cheaply and fast to sell it. It's like rubbish. It all falls apart. But I prefer the 70s stuff to work on because there's a bit more space. They didn't care about, tightly knitted circuit boards and like layering stuff. Double-sided. Who thought that were a good idea? For God's sake, sort yourselves out.
So, but Uncle Onions, in your where you repair your synthesizers, you do it as a car mechanic in the bay and lie on your back and have the synth.
Oh yeah.
Why is that then?
Great. Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah, I get inside the synthesizer, all the piece of equipment, whatever it be, But there's still some things that you can't get into. You got layered wafers of cardboard with circuit boards inside the layers. I mean, that's bloody nuts, isn't it?
Who does that?
But
Can't fix it.
you had a great reputation for licking circuitry, and you've got a kind of quite a well-known
Circuitlickers.co.uk.
Right,
You said you weren't going to bring that up.
Right.
You said you weren't going to say about circuit lickers. Yeah, I mean, everyone were bending circuits, weren't there? So I thought, right, you don't know what you're doing. So I thought I'd started licking circuit boards.
But people absolutely swear. Now, this is the thing that's incredible, is after Uncle Onions has kind of thoroughly licked the circuits, the sound is notably better. Why do you think that is, then?
Saliva, isn't it? It's got lots of enzymes in it, which react positively with all of your copper.
Right. So it actually creates better connectivity, so you get a better sound and more stable tuning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's all about the tuning, isn't it? Who wants a synthesizer that's out of tune?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good point. But I mean, in terms of like modern day sort of music, then I mean, how does that? How does
Is
that?
there any modern music? What? When were what were in the top 10 last week? Come on, tell me. What's number one? I bet you can't, can you?
Maybe not. Oh, but I mean,
what about 10 years ago? Go on, Robbie Williams, isn't it? Always Robbie Williams. Millennium, that's him, isn't it? Robbie Williams.
Well, that's as far as you get.
I don't really like music either, really. It's
right. Okay. Right. Well, okay. So Uncle Onions, hailing from Lancashire there, and so we're going to move now just over the sea now to Germany, where I'd like to introduce a rather. Somebody who's got, shall we say, quite special opinions about all things techno, minimal, and electronic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Bratwurst.
Yeah. What is up, guys? What is up? We are here. You are there. You're making the music. I'm spinning plates.
So
what's happening?
Bratwurst, you've got some quite strange opinions, if I may say so, regarding tempo. You don't believe that that anyone should listen to music beneath what tempo exactly?
135 BPM.
Wow.
There is no point.
I
mean, literally. I mean, you think about tempo, and like, I want to get up, I want to do the chores in the house, load the dishwasher, do the mopping. What speed? 135. You want to go out dancing? 135. You go lower than that. And why do they do this? But 120 is a walk to the shops. I installed Bitwig last week. It defaults to 110. That is like walking to the shops with your grandmother. It's too slow. There's no way you would do anything at 110 BPM.
But maybe some people want to listen to some chill out music or something. Why? Surely that know.
What? There is no chill out music. It is a conspiracy. Does not exist.
Okay.
There is only techno.
There's only techno.
There is only techno.
So I mean, you once famously said that unless music actually makes you bleed, you don't think it really possesses any real value.
Of course not.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, everybody makes a song that makes you cry. Everybody makes a song that makes you laugh. When you make a song that makes you bleed, it is really something.
Right, so moving on from Mr. Bratwurst there, we have one final guest I'd like to introduce, who's from slightly further to the east, and is Mr. Pavel Bloop. Mr. Pavel Bloop is a modular aficionado, if ever there was one. Pavel?
Hi. Yeah.
So
Pavel Bloop. Yeah, I think again with music, it is all about your own vision, your journey, and why would you want someone else's idea of a synthesizer if you weren't going to use it yourself?
So
you make your own synthesizer by putting the bricks together to make the end result. There is no point.
in buying a synthesizer,
So say
modular.
Oh, okay. So something like a mini Moog or something you think has no inherent value.
It started a ball rolling, but
Okay.
this is it.
Right. So
Up until Dieter in '95 created the Eurorack, music was empty. Synthesizer was born in '95.
So music-wise, then, I mean, you've been making music entirely on modular, but you don't use any oscillators, and you don't use any input signals. How do you generate the sounds?
I basically make sure that all the filters are self-oscillating. So there is an oscillator, but it is created from feedback loops. I also use delay feedbacks, lots of different generative kind of means to create that. I mean, an oscillator seems to me filthy. It's kind of unclean.
But you showed me sort of you were using decaying bread and mold, and I couldn't quite work out what on earth was going on. What was happening there?
Mold has conductivity. As long as you could use cheese or anything that has the blue vein in to create signal paths. So I was using that just as a method of creating it.
Ah, interesting. So, do you listen to other people's music? Is that something?
No.
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 Why?
No. What is other people's music?
Other people's music.
Yeah, but what is it? Why? Why do they make music? Why should I listen to their music?
Okay.
There is, you know.
Well, okay. There's not much I can say to that then. Okay, so I'm just going to pull back to myself for one moment here. So there's our panel now, the synth panel, and these five distinguished gentlemen all have very much different flavors, different tastes, and different ideas. What I'd like to do now, though, is I'd like to actually bring the man behind them all, Mr. Jason Jervis, back. Now, here he is, Mr. Jason Jervis. Hello, Jason. So,
Hi, guys.
what we're doing tonight, we're testing something out a little bit at the moment. We're just doing a bit of we're just starting to develop an idea. So we're just like literally in the first stages of this idea. So we thought it would be quite funny just to sort of jump straight in the deep end. And
we literally started talking about this at 7 p.m. tonight.
7 p.m. Yes.
So that's part of the reason why your show is a little bit later than advertised.
Yes. So we've got some work to do, but we just thought it might be quite fun just to sort of introduce the characters and just to sort of do a little bit of kind of like live workshopping really. And there's a bunch of other characters too, but this is super early days. But
it is, yeah. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, I know I've got the same beard. That might have to be addressed because that is a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? Yeah.
I think but anyway, just in case you're not aware who this fine gentleman is, Jason, Mr. Jason Jervis is the host of Toman Synth channel and has been involved since the first Synth Reactor back in 2019. But me and Jason, we go way back. We go back until 1988, and we met in our first day in college, 16, 17. Giving away ages here, but it's way back then.
Come on, we're both nearly 50, right?
Right. So we go back a long way, and we've had a very silly friendship, and so
it hasn't stopped.
It hasn't stopped. Yeah. So yes. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about yourself then, Jason, then, just so people, just to give a little bit of background.
Sure.
You've been fortunate enough, for quite a long time, 15 years or so, to be working with Steve Winwood and doing a lot of touring.
Huge amounts of touring. And as part of my roles with him I was his Hammond tech. pretty much throughout, as well as LD and guitar tech. So I did a lot of stuff and a bit of stage management as well. But in that time when we toured with, some really, Santana, Tom Petty, Steely Dan, Allman Brothers, and I got to meet a lot of really amazing artists and, more importantly, techs. So a lot of the characters have come from people that I've met in that time, as well as people, elsewhere. So yeah, it was an amazing opportunity to
Jason
do
sent
that.
Jason sent me a photo of a little video once. He's noodling on electric guitar on a stage during a sound check, and as he's noodling, Carlos Santana walks up behind and starts playing.
Story.
He starts playing congas.
I've never been like, I'm literally like, what is he doing? Playing? I'm like. It was yeah, and at that point it was there is a video. It's on YouTube, actually. It is on there. I might stick it in the link. That kind of stuff.
But Jason
was kind of.
But Jason's very much. I'm going to say something about my own journey. We've very much been influencing each other, and because when we first met way back, we were just getting into things. We were really just obsessed about music, but we also loved a lot of kind of prog and sort of and like you were a huge Deep Purple fan back then, and
still am. I mean, definitely.
But we were really.
I'm an organ, see, it's all in there.
But like we were just into like the unhippest music, what everyone else was listening to, sort of like Pixies and Nirvana and things like that. And
Depeche Mode, actually, a lot of Depeche Mode and Metallica. Yeah. I remember that there was two factions in college that would try and get the beatbox in the hall, and it was either the Depeche Mode lot,
the boombox,
the Metallica lot.
Yeah.
Huh?
The boombox, not the beatbox.
The boombox.
You're trying to get the beatboxer to come on, do some more Metallica, will you?
Yeah. And there's us listening to Yes and Van de Graaff Generate. Well, actually, probably not Van de Graaff at that point, but Yes and Rush. I mean, I remember you kind of. I'd already had one Rush album, but you were like such a Rush head.
Oh, yeah.
I was, I think, more Jethro Tull.
Oh, you were big Jethro Tull.
Yeah. What was I? Yeah, Tull, Led Zeppelin. I was kind of coming in from more the rock side, I suppose.
Queen, of course, you were a huge Queen fan.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember in the what do you call it, the rec room, the
common room.
The common room, like CDs were still relatively new, such as How Old We Are. And I saw Jason and I said, oh man, I can't believe it. Someone was like frisbeeing a CD across the common room. Anyway, I actually saw it. It was a CD of Queen's Hot Space. And your face
No, it wasn't Hot Space.
It wasn't, what was
I've never owned that record.
It wasn't Hot Space. Sheer heart attack. And then as I was telling you this story, your face was just kind of dropping as you realised that it was your CD. But we were terrible. We used to like at the lunchtime we would go into Wrexham. This was in Wrexham in North Wales, and we would go to this music shop called Ray's Underground Music and just like hang around, and then always leave it too late.
It was Paul Sturman though. He was the man that had all the information and kept us kind of like nourished, because there was no internet.
No internet.
So everything we learned came from Paul.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
He was our encyclopedia.
Yeah, and but I mean, it was great fun because we just learning about all sorts of things back then, and we were really feeding each other different things to listen to and stuff. And then I know we've had different sort of paths that have come back in at various times over the years. So anyway, I don't want to bore the audience with our reminiscences.
Waffling from the past. Actually, I've got my pipe here.
But I'll talk about let's talk a little bit about your equipment odyssey, though, because you've gone through so many bits and bobs of equipment. In fact, when you started your Get Jervis channel, you were focusing initially there on making videos about some old and forgotten about quirky bits of gear, like the JHS Space Drum. No, what's it called? The
Syndrum.
The Syndrum.
Pro behind the sheet behind me. SD1. Synth Drum 1, I think, or something like that. Yeah, I even contacted JSH about that to find out information, but they didn't have any because, as it turns out, they were bulk bought from a company in Japanese, and then they just put their name on it. But yeah, there was one video on the internet with somebody playing it with a screwdriver. It's like, doo, doo. It's like, yeah, this needs more than that. So that was my first video, and I watch it back now, and it's kind of interesting to see, But ultimately, that was what Get Jervis was about.
Right.
Stuff that I picked up over the years that there was no coverage of. And then obviously.
Well, you were kind of you were kind of quite quick on the ground to kind of get analog synths when they were being sold for super dirt cheap.
A mutual friend of ours, Shay, spotted a Sequential Pro 1 in a second-hand shop in Swansea. So I sent him to get it. £70.
Yeah. Those are the days.
Do we talk about the Halicat?
Oh, the Halicat.
and the Gen SX 1000. That was like Radiophonic Workshop heaven.
Yeah.
So a mixer with a tape.
Yeah, it's like a 70s mixer.
Best sounding thing.
Yeah, big mixing desk with a huge sound sort of tape loop that would go on for I don't know, it was a couple of minutes. You could just keep overdubbing onto it, and you could punch in your 4 channels into recording into it. Yeah, the Halicat by Wem, and I bought it, and then somehow you got it off me somehow.
I might have teased you with a bit of bass gear that I might have had, and you go, "Oh yeah, I'll give you that instead."
I know those things.
Yeah,
I loved the love that you lost. The things. I think those things go for an absolute bomb now. So
yeah, they do.
But I mean, you were kind of as I was as well, very affected in the early 90s by things like The Orb, Adventures Beyond the Ultra World, which has just had it's just had its birthday, hasn't it? It's just had its 30th anniversary last week, I think it was. That album had a huge impact, didn't it? Sort of.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it still does. I still listen to it now, and I suppose UF-Orb as well after it. Those two really did set the tone, but for me, it was kind of like a journey that I'd started in the 70s. Having grown up in Belgium and listening to Europop, having it siphoned through the radio of Dad's car, an Avenger, with a vinyl roof. Yeah. So I'd already had all that kind of stuff. My mum was big in Vangelis, so I think 1978 onwards, that was a big influence. She had, I think, some John and Vangelis albums, 2 of those, and the best of Vangelis. She bought the soundtrack for Chariots of Fire as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, having then seen Blade Runner, you couldn't buy the CD. No. For years. Yeah. You couldn't buy it.
The soundtrack wasn't available.
So that's the thing to remember now. We take it for granted that everybody knows what Blade Runner is, but you had the soundtrack, the original soundtrack to Blade Runner was an orchestral reimagining of Vangelis's work.
You couldn't, so you could only see it in the film. Yeah. You can only get to hear it if you watch the film.
Yeah.
So similar to me, you were like into playing rock guitar, playing in bands, and being, being like a kind of a bit of a whittle merchant, but at the same time being into your guitars. You were quite early on getting into your synths, so this is sort of so we were like so we were kind of kindred.
That means to an end, wasn't it? For me, it was like we were listening to prog rock. Every prog rock band has a keyboard player that is, godly in their skill. I wanted to add some of that without the talent into my music, so I got into synths, and that totally took me towards, what I'd been listening to. And I didn't expect that as such. So I very quickly got a room full of synths. Prophet 600 was my first. Big. That's the Frank's got that.
A Rocket Gold Star.
A friend had it, and he again, he missed it. I miss it too. But it's one of those synths that it was for me a real journey synth. It taught me so much about synthesis,
Well, I vividly remember one time when I was visiting you when you were in North Wales, and you had something to play for me, and it was Ostrich Tentacles. It was Pungent Effulgent album, And
Prop 600.
what's
Yeah.
that first? And there's a lot of Prophet 600 on that. What's the first song
Yeah,
called with that
perfect.
amazing intro? But I mean,
Kick
that,
Muck.
no,
Kick
Kick Muck was later on. No, it wasn't the opening track. The opening track had that big build up, and it builds up and it builds up. And
Sploosh.
No, not
Sploosh?
Sploosh. No, Sploosh is off. That's a different one.
Strangitude.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, Ostrich Tentacles. Again, this stuff. Back then, it kind of come from a place that had become quite unfashionable. But by 1993, Ostrich Tentacles had really become this really big band in Britain. And their album Jurassic Steps,
Shift.
Jurassic Shift,
Yeah.
got into the... Did it graze
goes
the
to the
top
charts, yeah.
10? But like the top 10 of the regular
was
British
random,
album
wasn't it?
charts. You know,
We
it
were
was
living. We were living in Neath at the time.
Yeah, we were like so
I
into
I bought
Osrics.
it new. It was one of those moments I had to buy it new, and not from the second-hand vendor in the market.
Right.
So-
Yeah. But I mean, Osrix was, I think, it was very underrated. I think their use of synths was really fantastic. And of course, Osrix begat Eat Static, who just nailed that kind of trancey, sort of techno-y,
psychedelic as well. Just all the elements in there.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah. Abduction. That's a really good album actually.
Yeah.
Definitely worth. If you've not heard it, go and search it. The track Abduction actually is really good. Yeah.
But I mean, Ostrich Tentacles were an interesting band at the time because in 1991 in Britain, rave music was just taking over, and sort of more traditional instrumentation was kind of feeling quite old hat. But Osrix seemed like to have that combination of sounds that would appeal to the techno generation, and but also chops and sort of guitar riffs and proper kind of band playing that was was really exciting to us then, and it still is to me now.
Still is, yeah. I think it's a natural for I think knowing the history better now than we did then. It's almost like a natural evolution of the band Gong, which also did similar kind of things with synthesizers and traditional, albeit more psychedelic
in many ways
music.
Master Builder off the Gong album is the sort of template, I think, for almost the career of Osric Tentacles. I mean, that's not really fair to say that, but in terms of a wellspring, that particular tune, Master Builder, which Steve Hillige's version of it on his Green album is called the Glorious Om Riff. And that's kind of preceded by Activation Meditation, and this became almost a cliche of hippiedom, didn't it? But I mean, what an incredible track!
That album ended up on the Young Ones.
The Young Ones. The Police.
Steve
Hillage. Yeah.
But again, Steve Hillage, Rainbow Dome music. I mean, without that, where's ambience? I mean, everyone says Brian Eno.
Yeah,
but then you've got that, and you've got this as well. I mean, definitely check that out, because that's something I think that certainly for me is a big influence, and lovely to chill to.
Rainbow Dome music was created for some kind of it was some special event, I think, in 1979 perhaps, and they were trying to make like this kind of electronic meditation. Steve and his longtime partner, both musically and relationship wise, Miquette Garaudy, who I think is amazing. Her contributions to the electronic world, I think, have been huge and way underrated as well. I mean, she was the one who was playing all the kind of, after Tim Blake, I think, or I think maybe, Tim Blake was doing a lot of that stuff with Gong, but then Miquette would sort of do that as well, where she was doing a lot of just like acid bubbles and whooshes, and she's masterful at that. She's so good. She can kind of move textures, and she's absolutely amazing. So seeing her and Steve Hillage, we talk about Steve, but really we should mention Miquette in the same breath, really, because
obviously,
so many of the things that they've done together, and then System 7, which now, do you remember we got absolutely obsessed with an album by System 7 called 777 with the green cover,
I think actually someone's already mentioned that.
Ian Tyndale.
The surprise, everybody is kind of with us on what we're talking about musically.
Nice.
I think they were there. They must have been like visiting the flat in those days, because I think everyone's going, yeah, and there's lots of other names in there as well, which, you know, I haven't heard of. So, you know, Pete Namlook, yeah, I've not encountered him. So, you know, again, back in those days, you were only able to access what you knew, and that was kind of from word of mouth, wasn't it?
But I can remember, though, reading whatever I could find about, say, Orb, Adventures Beyond the Ultraworld, but also when the next big release from them came out, which was the UF Orb, and it was preceded, wasn't it, by the single The Blue Room. And I don't know if you were with us down in Llangennith, in the Gower, and it was a beautiful sunset. We were sitting in the sand dunes, and Radio 1, we had our Radio 1 playing on a little kind of radio, and they played 40 minutes of it was a single. It was 40 minutes long. 40 minutes. Well, I've done 12 hours.
Don't forget your day long.
But you know, I seem to remember that after that single, they changed the what could be considered a single. That 40 minutes was way too long to be classed as a single. So is it possible that the Blue Room might have been the longest single ever released, you know, or maybe, but they played it on Radio 1 on this, you know, exclusive broadcast of it, and the sun was setting across the beach, we're in the dunes and stuff, and it was I mean, I think for me, as an incredible, that big bass line, it's so cool. I mean, I'm doing it like a bass. No, I don't think it was Jar Wobble on that. Was it? Or maybe Jar Wobble. It was.
I thought it was. I thought it was Jar. I think that was that's the partnership that started about that.
Yeah.
Anybody know any difference? Comments?
But I mean, I mean, I think sort of in my life, that was like a pivotal moment of experience of just really, because I think I'd been so obsessed with kind of prog rock and musicianship that the kind of the electronic and the DJ side of things.
I used to rant on about that though.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working at Sound Control at the time, and obviously that was, you know, a good portion of my clientele were drum and bass artists, you know. So, you know, there's a different set of skills that, you know, but I think, like anything else, you go from your experience of what you know, with that kind of stuff, I think. So,
You mentioned Carl Hyde earlier, and when I was playing,
well, I didn't mention Carl Hyde. I think General MIDI mentioned Carl Hyde.
Yes, but Carl said many influential things to me. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting was, although he'd used some live drums on his album to go out live, he decided that we were going to use electronic drums, and very, very against using backing tracks. Like Underworld never ever performed to a pre-prepared backing track. When Underworld play live, the mix is always built. They use Ableton Live, you know. I mean, this is kind of fine line, but I think it's this idea that, you know, when you go out as a rock band or just as a band where you're not got backing tracks, then you're all relying on each other to play the song, you know. And like if you're then electronic artists, you know, I mean, in some cases it's inevitable that you need to use certain amount of kind of backing tracks for certain things, but in the most, it feels like when you've got a preset thing, then it means that you can really mess up, but the song will not mess up. Whereas when you're really playing live, if you mess up, it should sync the song, you know. I've gone on about this on many occasions in the past, but I'm mentioning this though because when I was talking to Carl, I was going, one of the things I don't like about if I'm playing along to something like a loop is that I can't influence the loop. If I'm playing to a drummer and I want to accelerate and I want to slow down, I can do it. I can give subtle hints. I can play a little bit more
push
and pull and influence the music, and the drummer can do the same thing, and then this kind of nice communication, you know, and the listener will pick up that, you know, you can increase the energy and then drop back on the energy and really sculpt.
But I think you can still do that to a degree with a loop anyway, because
Right.
as long as you've got that fixed point, then you can create push.
I think this is
pull
the point I was going to
with-
say. Yeah, because Carl, just to finish my story briefly there, and
Sorry.
pretty much you just said what Carl was.
Gaz, I am high.
No, but he was encouraging me to do that because you know that is going to fall in a very predictable way, that you can then you're not having to try and hold it together. You can start to explore. And someone said to me once, I thought was quite an interesting way of doing it. And this applies in production circles. If you're trying to get someone to play along to a click who maybe doesn't feel comfortable with it, or is like say with a drummer trying to play to a click, sometimes they're really trying to come and land right onto the kind of grid, right onto the click, and subsequently their playing can become stilted, and they're so paranoid about being judged as not being able to play in time that they end up playing like without feel, that they're so focused on trying to come in. So someone said, I wish I could remember who said it now, but rather than taking the click as going boop 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 boop, like it's like this thing, dish, dish, dish. Think of it more like a clock. For instance, you go do 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 boop boop do.
So you've got space.
You can start to appreciate do 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 do.
Weaving.
It's less about that and more about this. It's a subtle little thing, but it actually really works. And like, I certainly get that when I'm playing, say, like bass is where I really feel in my happy place, and and I can move around things, and so that was cool. But yeah, so Carl was kind of quite influential to me with that. Now, I just very briefly finish by say about that little sort of anecdote in that with the material that we perform with Carl, and Peter Chilvers employed a similar technique to what Underworld would do live, and he would build the set by triggering elements in Ableton. So by having a person triggering things, it allows for things to happen. It allows for arrangements to have wiggle room, so it's quite interesting. I think just to clarify though, the kind of backing track stuff that I don't like is what's dominated kind of big performing touring rock bands for the last 20 years or so, where they're making a very reinforced big sound to be like an exact sort of sound of the album,
album, yeah.
And like everything's on the back, there's drums, there's lead vocals, there's bass, everything is in the backing tracks, and then actually the front of house, this is what's been going on for years, and I know this from insider knowledge, is that they've got everything on tracks, like everything, and whoever's playing on stage, it depends on the acoustics of the particular venue. If they can get the tracks kind of working, they'll mute the player from front of house and rely on the tracks. So the player is playing, but you're hearing the pre-recorded tracks played, and it's just like, this is done an unbelievable amount. So many of the big.
I think it's been done for years. Somebody's pointed out that the Police were doing it. Jethro Tull, Songs from the Wood, always Ian's harmonies at the beginning, mimed by the band, but clearly all Ian Anderson. It's just one of those things where people feel, like Queen walking off stage in Bohemian Rhapsody. They realised they couldn't fake it.
I think things
but they
like
needed to play it.
I mean,
so that was for me.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. If you're going to do it, make it really obvious.
There's some justifications in some places. I think this is the problem, though. Those justifications have been used to kind of smuggle in, like the big Milli Vanilli saga in the early 90s, where the backing track went off, and then it came back on, and they'd walked off or something, and their voices were playing, and they got busted, and but I mean, in the Milli Vanilli case, it wasn't even them on the record, so they weren't even miming to their voices. So I mean, it was a pretty awful thing, really. However, there used to be a sticker that you used to see a lot in Britain on things from the Musicians Union. It was a yellow sticker, and it said "Keep Music Live" was it like blue text, and you saw that sticker for years and years, you know, all over the place, venues and various places. And the worry, you know, stemming from the 80s and drum machines, and you know, drummers are going to be losing jobs and that sort of thing. And in some cases they sort of did, but like the dance music, electronic music revolution wouldn't have happened without electronic drums. And electronic drums are fantastic. I love electronic drums. You know, there is a total need and reason for them. You know, they're not in any way an evil thing, but so actually, so talking about drum machines, you've got some quite nice ones there, haven't you?
HR6. Well, shall I remove?
Why not?
I don't know if I dare.
Well, why you are?
It's dark. It's
Is
darkness.
that the Joe Mox there?
Yeah. Where is it? Where's the light? Oh, see. Oh, I'm gonna very carefully remove my screen so that show off the sticks a little bit.
I'll just cut away so everyone can look at me smile just whilst you're prepping things.
Doing anything.
Yeah.
Kind of pretty much ready then. You cut away after I'd literally.
Oh, you've revealed all.
Revealed. So
and there it is.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
The Pro Rhythm.
Yeah. I love that thing. I mean,
I love
does it
£10. I paid £10 for that.
Yeah.
You know, because do you know what though? A friend of mine, Sheldon, offered me this thing, and he said it wasn't this, but I'm sure it was, and he offered it me for £10 because he wanted to go out for a beer, and I said, nah, I don't want it.
What was it?
And I'm pretty sure it was an ARP Avatar.
Oh no. Yeah.
What? £10?
£10.
But I had it. I had £10. It's just,
£10 was a lot of money back then, though.
You stupid child. Why did you say no? I should have said, say yes to everything. You know, and it was a tenner, right? Yeah. So it was one of those things. That was a could have been scenario. But Joe Mox, X-Bass 09. I've got the camera locked down to try and get the black, so I might sort of open it up a bit. But yeah, that was, that has become a kind of real standard in my electronic music, because it was before that I'd only, what did I actually have?
Oh, you've had loads over the years. So.
I can't remember life before Joe Mox. I don't think there was. I'm just gonna open it manually, I think. Oh, nothing's happening. Happening?
It's looking okay. It's looking good.
It's because I know what I've done. Go on. It's just one of those. There you go. How's that?
So in the 1990s, though, you started making electronic ambient music under the name of Friendly and Natural.
With Shay.
With Shay.
Which,
Shay Lockyer. What? Tell us how you used to make those recordings. What?
Atari ST.
It was Atari ST days, wasn't it? Yeah.
Atari ST. And I remember starting it all with Steinberg 24.
Pro 24. Yeah.
Pro 24. Yeah. And then I managed to acquire Cubase. And then at one point, Cubase stopped working. So I can't remember what I did. I found something else that worked somewhere.
You went on to Fruity. You were an early adopter of Fruity Loops, weren't you, as well?
That's because I went from Atari to PC and regretted it immediately.
Yeah. And actually,
horrible.
Fruity Loops was one of the first reliable pieces of music that you could make music on a PC. Where all of the sounds and everything was contained. I mean, Rebirth was
Time Stretch.
Rebirth. It was phenomenal. Rebirth kind of started it, didn't it? And then Fruity Loops was like a kind of, Rebirth.
It was brilliant.
Sort of
But I think we both used Cubasis as well, didn't we? Back
at times.
Well, you were PC for a while.
Yep.
And I jumped ship and went to Apple.
Yeah.
I
stayed with
me
PC
for a couple of years.
I was PC for a long time. I was PC from about 95, my first music PC, and then the first software I started using on that was Cakewalk 4, which was the first Cakewalk, I think, to have audio in it.
Can I just stop?
Yeah.
I'm so pleased it's called Cakewalk again.
Yes. It has gone.
Why
it's
change
free.
The name of software?
It's free.
Why buy it and then change it?
But
and then
yeah. Well, I mean,
it was established. It was well established.
But I mean, it's easy to forget that software is now free. If you're a PC user,
is it?
If you're a PC user, yes, it belongs. It was bought after Cakewalk went bust, or however it was bought. It changed hands a few times. I think Roland had Cakewalk.
Sonar
for a bit.
was Roland.
Yeah, sorry, Roland had it for a bit.
I think they branded it.
Gibson bought it, I think, then, and then I think when Gibson sort of that sort of era of Gibson kind of bit the dust. It was bought by BandLab, which are, I think, are operating out of, is it Singapore or certainly out in Far East? And I've got an interesting business model, actually, the BandLab one, because they started with Band. You know, you can download BandLab as a free kind of, computer sequencer, but they then bought Sonar, Cakewalk Sonar, and then it's free, and it's a fully featured DAW. So it's easy to overlook that. I mean, that's an astonishing, powerful piece of software, not like some sort of cut down thing. Anyway, I was desperate to get back to Cubase, so I had a stint. I had a funny little stint.
You got me to Reaper, and I still use it now.
Yeah. I mean, Reaper is astonishing. I mean, it is. It's astonishing.
I went from Digital Performer. When I went from PC to Mac, I went from Cubase to Logic, and then from Logic to Digital Performer. DP3. I actually found the T-shirt. I've still got the T-shirt. DP3. We're on like 11 now or something, right? So yeah, and then
Digital Performer it's one of those very niche software in that it's not used by that many people. However, it is powerful. It's powerful and amazing. Absolutely loved by the people who use it. A very, very loyal user base.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
It's nice to see that it is an ongoing thing.
And available on PC now. I've got version 9, I think, PC, which I use occasionally because it's got some features you don't get anywhere else. There's, especially as a songwriter, there's a function that you can overdub. I mean, this is probably available elsewhere now, but at the time there was no way of doing this. So I would do multi-track, multi-layered harmonies as one take. So you'd have one chunk of audio with all the harmonies printed into that audio. So yeah, no freezing the tracks together or bouncing them down. It was like, boom, that's how you did it. And there was a little plug-in part of it that enabled you to do that. So yeah, some really nice, interesting stuff. And again, when I got into DP3, the time stretch was kicking Logic's backside for dust at the time, and there was nothing that I was my loops to be perfect, in time. So that was a big thing for me and a lot of other users at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Back in the noughties, early noughties.
I think the evolution of music software is very interesting in that I've been pretty much following it from the beginning and sort of moving with the changes.
We both had Model Bs, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well.
I've talked about this on my show many times. I did have the Music 500 and then upgraded it to Music 5000 system.
And you gave me a floppy disk when we were in college of Pavlov's Dog. A great game.
Right.
Remember that? I've got a 5 1/4 inch. My Model B still in my mum's loft.
No. When my parents kind of sold.
Oh no,
up,
it's here. I've got it here.
They threw away my Music 500 and they threw away all my discs, and I often think about that.
I don't know how state mine's going to be in, but I've got Dragon 32, the only Welsh computer. That's right, 32K, marvelous machine, cartridges, and my Model B, and I got an Amiga, which I found in a skip, so I don't even know if that works.
It's I mean, it's a funny one. I mean, I like it that we've got people like the 8-Bit Guy and various others who are documenting and chronicling those times, because it's very. I'm a little bit of the opinion of like, oh, I don't want to go back particularly to old computer systems. I believe by and large computers have just got better and better, and the musical experience has got better and better. However, many people still swear by the Atari ST as being their optimum creativity period within sort of computer sequencing and electronic music.
I wonder though if that's not down to the joys of youth and the enthusiasm to make music every single waking moment.
Yes, right.
You know, I think there's that too. However, in the ST's defense, I don't think, he says, that there is anything that can compete with the MIDI timing of an ST.
I think there is.
Absolutely.
I don't think that. I think that isn't. I think that's a
myth.
I think it's a bit of a myth.
It's a myth.
Yeah. The
well,
I'm just looking for. Well, I mean, okay. That's a controversial point. I mean, I think it was good.
Yeah.
I think it was really, really good, and I think that it's been. I think it's shown how bad it's been for a long time as well. But there are advocates who will say no, it is the best. And I'm looking for something now. I don't know if I can find it, but a few years ago you could get this thing. It was like an Atari ST. It was like a redux of an Atari ST, but you can run and prop, the Atari ST Cubase on it. It's just like a small little circuit board thing. Oh God, I could try and find it. It was just, a little bit bigger than a Raspberry Pi, but it was it would.
People have make. I mean, that's the thing is I've got a real IT kind of sort of sort of obsessed with making kind of emulators, not just as circuit board, but the experience that you'd get from that as well. He actually made his own arcade machine.
Nice.
in his lounge, just like, this guy is crazy. So there are people out there that will do that kind of stuff, and I think that's a great skill to have. If you wanted to make me an ST, I'd probably be okay with that.
Yeah. Steve Elbows in the chat room. Sorry, I will catch up with the chatties.
BIOS! Oh my God,
BIOS.
yes!
BIOS.
That was I ran that for a while. Oh my gosh, yeah. That was the best alternative to Windows for amazing time.
Yeah.
I've almost forgotten that QI 700. There's some I daren't roll back because there's lots of stuff. Somebody had a Dragon 64. You were spoiled. But yeah, Dragon 32 uses DR110. Yeah, I only sold mine like last year. But that again cost me a £5 or something, 15 quid. So yeah, absolutely. So CX5M, yes. That's come up recently as well, hasn't it? The MSX computers. Steve Baltus has just got acquired one. He's such an interesting collector of gear. He's got some amazing stuff. He really does go out of his way to find stuff you've never
Steve
heard
Baltus,
of.
yeah, he's got the biggest drum machine collection, I think, that I know of. He's got over 100 drum machines, maybe something like that. Maybe we should get him on the show at some point to talk drum machines.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So, okay. Right. Okay. We'll go on.
Did we want to talk about anything else? Did we want to talk about keys and frequencies?
That's what we were going to talk about. Yes.
Yeah, you did a really good.
Let's just roll back a moment though. Keys and frequencies happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure many of you saw that it was happening, but this was Thoman's answer to the Synth Reactor for this year, knowing that COVID had kind of scuppered last year's planned Synth Reactor. So this year they had their keys and frequencies event. just at the tail end of March. This was an online event, but you had to go, once you were an attendee, you had to go through a portal. Then you could just go between the different rooms. So I was given, I was given a chance to have a little soapbox on there. But you, Jason, were the host of the whole event.
I was,
yeah. Tell us.
Well,
tell us.
the main. There was like 4 stages.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult to try and comprehend on paper. When I had the meetings beforehand, it was like, okay, and it didn't sound as good as it was, but it then became something a bit bigger than it was, I think, designed to be, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. What came across, I think, was you had 4 areas that you could hop between on this platform. So 4, like a virtual convention, really.
Current things happening.
I was introducing the main stage. So I would introduce the acts that would go on and do half-an-hour slots, which included, Cuckoo was on there, Bo Beats was on there, to name a couple. Then there's a couple of musicians that would come in. Hinako Honori did an ambient sort of, that's to put it down, but did a really beautiful piece of music. And basically, it started at 2 p.m. and ended at
7.
Is that 2 p.m. at 7? But wasn't that 1 p.m. and 6? I can't remember because it went really fast. But I was hopping between each as much as I could between all the different stages. So there was a lot going on. Demos from Korg. I think Kabuki was on there with an ARP 2600 as well, the sort of module version of that. Lots of really interesting stuff. But the thing that I was surprised about was the vibe. I mean, I'm sitting in the studio on my own, and there's this radiating kind of vibe of goodness from all these different sort of, the chat rooms were buzzing.
That's the Gaz Williams show every Wednesday. We've got it happening.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I've been a viewer many times of your show, and I just to put it in the chat. So
can I just jump in here with a bit of chat room? So Mac is claiming it was a terrible idea to put it on an unknown platform, and why wasn't it on YouTube? But then Wagyu says that agreeing, but asked them but they didn't want to give 10 people their YouTube account, so that's why it was used on this Run the World platform. But I think I think though, I mean, given the enforced COVID restrictions, is exploring new a new way maybe of doing things, but okay, so some interesting feedback.
I think it promised to do everything they needed, and I think there were some technical issues behind the scenes which weren't evident, and they wouldn't have been evident before the actual event. So I think that's the only thing I'd say. But in spite of that, the vibes were strong. There were powerful, good vibes, and I think that's successful in the first event kind of its kind, really. So really. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I know that some of the chatties joined me for my little chat about infinity boxes, and you actually joined me. I did,
briefly on that as well.
Able to do that.
It was good fun. I don't think anyone took it that seriously, and it wasn't meant to be very serious. Okay, well, I think we're going to probably be drawing things slightly to a close. But tell us then, Jason, what have you got coming up? Anything that you can sort of spill the beans about?
Well, I'm doing some I've had a little bit of a break from making content, so I've got some stuff in the pipeline for Thomann synthesizers, so keep an eye on that. I'm gonna have to put some effort into my own channel.
Right.
773 subscribers is not enough, but I just haven't had the time with all the work for Thomann. So
you have to work it with YouTube, I think.
Sorry?
You have to work it much more than I.
I get it. I mean, I know full well if I'm not putting out content, then why should someone subscribe to my channel? And I haven't. The last thing I did was the Micro Freak update back in January, which really more than anything was to test I'd done a lot of work in the studio, sort of improving the sort of layout and camera angles. I've decorated and stuff. So I wanted to put it to the test to see if I could turn around a video really quickly, and I succeeded. But I haven't had a chance to do anything since then. But I have bought a new armchair.
Oh.
So there's going to be very soon
more
synths at bedtime, which is a bizarre concept.
Yeah, it's a bizarre concept. So on Jason's channel, you've done 2 episodes, I think, so far of it.
I have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
So tell us about the concept. Explain the concept and why.
Well, I don't know. Voiceover has always been a passion of mine, and I've always ended up doing bits and bobs here and there, but never anything specific. So I wanted to do something specific, and I thought I've done, as an acoustic musician, I've accompanied people reading poetry with instruments, and it's like, well, that's quite nice because you're reacting to the verse with music. And I thought, wouldn't it be good to be able to take maybe a chapter or a certain amount of text from a classic novel and put synthesizers to it? So I did that. Dr. Jekyll went a bit silly though, because I actually recorded a lot of it in a school gymnasium where I actually had the synthesizer, which was an impulse command, playing through a big Mackie speaker, and I had a dry feed into my Spire, and then I used the mic on that the other side of the room, so that is natural reverb.
Nice.
And then I had lots of set pieces that were knocking around from school productions and things, and it got a bit out of hand, and it took me so long to make it, and it was just like, oh, I didn't really need to go that far with it.
Wow.
Whereas the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a very low rent version, so I think I need to scale it back a bit and just do what it's about,
So have you can you give us a hint about a future episode, which book it might be based on, or is that will that
yeah I've got Tom Hardy, The Native Returns, picked as my next feature. I'm still, originally I was going to use the sort of the Mini Brute 2S, but I don't think I can move it now because it's like the heart of the modular. So unless I do it there, I don't know. So I'm thinking maybe I might have, at the moment in the living room, I might have another Analog Solution synthesizer, which is due to be released in a couple of weeks. So it might be that.
You're quite partial to Analog Solutions, aren't you?
I do. I think what Tom manages to, and he's marketing this synth in this way, he manages to make it sound like it's a vintage instrument. Not just like an analog synth. It sounds like it's a vintage analog synth, which I think the impulse command is just out there. And I managed to get some really filthy sounds out of it. And it was so, from 1 minute going like, yes, this is, and then to something completely different. And very percussive and light in its own way. But what I've got at the moment is the new Leipzig.
Oh.
And that is on my coffee table, plugged into my Fishman acoustic amp. So it's already in the lounge next to my new armchair. So I think that seems to be like the thing I might do,
I think so.
And I think it'd be a nice. I've got to do some stuff in there anyway. So I'm going to set it up. I think that's what I'll do.
Okay. And then
so please subscribe.
In terms of gear lust, anything sort of floating
I'm
about?
trying not to. I need a car.
Right.
But you can't make a sound with a car, can you? Can't. I'm still loving my Pro 3 SE.
I am
the
still SE Pro
finding
Pro 3.
new depths with that.
It's a lifetime of depth to plunder on that thing.
And I got this before you did. Look how many modules you've got. So I've got the Dreadbox modules there, and I think that's also something that I might do a little feature on for Get Jervis as well, because I think they're a brilliant way in, and I think without getting the sort of catnip effect of modular, that you could possibly be happy with just those modules.
Well, they certainly
could. You? Yeah.
Well, I mean, they give you plenty of options. I think it's something that I've been chronicling on my Mondays show, my Adventures in Eurorack show, which I've got something that I was talking about on my show on Monday. Eventide has arrived now. That's just gone. It's just gone in the rack today. So that's something I'm excited.
Do you want to tell the story about you getting it in the rack on the phone to me and me pointing out that it was 7 o'clock? And you should prepare for this show.
Maybe it's something to do with that who's causing us to... All right.
Me? You called me.
Yeah, all right. But yes,
Anyway.
it's just come up now. I think I'm going to say I'm going to draw the show to a close because I've got things I need to do tonight as well. So everybody, thank you so much for... Oh, Mac is saying, I'm just going to pick up on some chat room first before we go.
Okay.
Mac is saying, I've given up on you getting your noodle box out, so you're selling yours and getting an SQ64 instead. Oh, no, stick with your noodle box. I think it's better than the SQ64. Well, it's different, but the noodle box is definitely something. The thing is, my noodle box is in the heart of my rig over there. And I was mentioning on Monday with my my adventures show that I'm going to be doing it more in situ, the different setups that I've been doing, because I've been pulling them apart and I need to now start locking them down. Anyway, that's for Monday, not for today. But Jason, thank you so much. And the synth panel, introducing the synth panel characters, that's something that we'll, is work in progress. Thank you everyone for...
It's very much work in progress.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, yeah.
Yeah, great. And yes, I'll be back Monday night, 10:30 p.m. I want to say GMT, but it's BST, isn't it? British Summertime. And thank you, everyone. It's a great audience here. We got a lovely big audience.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And for pushing the old synth panel on me, like literally. Very little preparation. For
Well,
this for me.
the synth panel is something we've been sort of just building up a little bit about, but we're having a conversation at 7 o'clock.
Well, that was kind of the end of the conversation, but we've been talking up to then, and that's why.
Yeah,
it just happened. It was organic.
It was an organic thing. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Watching. And staying with us.
Okay. I think we'll say good night to everybody. Thanks again for joining and for joining me, Jason. And we'll say bye to everyone.
Pleasure.
Cheerio, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Have you ended that?
No, because I've lost my mouse.